Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another interesting young woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. It's so great to be here with you. My name is Isabel Shea. I'm the Associate Director of Digital Fundraising at an organization called Project Hope. I'm based here in the United States in Minneapolis, Minnesota, but I was born and raised on the East Coast in a town called Leesburg, Virginia, very close to Washington, D.C., which now is considered a suburb of DC where a lot of people will commute into the city. But when I was a kid, it was mostly farmland, and I believe there was maybe one traffic light when I was born. So it was, we certainly had access to the city, but it was much more rural, suburban type of setting. And I was the youngest of two siblings. My oldest sibling is her name is Caroline. And when I was a kid, I would say that I think probably before I could speak, and then when I could actually speak, my first word was gato, cat in Spanish. And for the longest time, I thought that I would devote my life to animals in some way. I think the story is when I was in kindergarten, my teacher asked what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I said a vegetarian, but I actually meant a veterinarian. But the funny thing is that I would grow up to be a vegetarian. And then throughout my childhood, I certainly spent a lot of time, outside with animals and riding horses and just really wanting to. I think I've always been drawn to, there's something about any sort of vulnerable being that might need help that I think that was what drew me to that. But as I studied in school and figured out what more of my interests were, and then where my skill set was, it was not necessarily in the science and mathematics that would probably be required for me to be a vet. And then I think the first time that I had to say goodbye to a beloved pet, I realized that I don't know that I could actually, that was the area for me. And then I kind of just let my life take its course without necessarily thinking about what I wanted to do. But my maternal grandmother was, her name is Carmen, and she was one of the most wonderful women in the world, Puerto Rican. And there was so much about my upbringing that centered my Puerto Rican heritage. But, I just really didn't feel I almost felt like not a fraud, but just that I didn't have much of a connection to that. I didn't, I knew some Spanish words, but I didn't speak the language. And really, it just, without my actively thinking about it, when I graduated from high school and was in college and trying to figure out what it was I wanted to study, all of the courses that I was drawn to ended up being either Spanish language or about Latin American history. So I ended up becoming a Latin American studies major and with a minor in Spanish. And to be honest, my main goal was to become fluent in Spanish. And so I studied abroad in Santiago, Chile, back in, 2007, I believe. And it was such a formative experience for me, really getting out there and trying to immerse myself in a new culture, understand, make sure that I wasn't, like the culture shock that you can experience and also cause, I believe, when you're in a new place. Like, that was such a great experience for me. And I really, 6 months wasn't enough. I really just kind of fell in love with a lot of things. And so I should have mentioned this. I went to school at the University of Virginia. And when I graduated, the first thing I wanted to do was go back to Chile with, I didn't necessarily have a career goal there. I wanted to go and see what I could do. So I started translating texts and teaching English as a second language. And in my spare time and going to the grocery stores there, I really realized that there was such incredible agriculture and produce available to me. And shopping in the grocery stores was so much more expensive when I was on a very, very tight budget. And so a friend of mine recommended a book, Anthony Bourdain's book, and said, come with me to this market where you can, with $10, you can come home with enough produce and vegetables to cook something delicious for all week for 2 people. So she took me there, and then I was reading this book, and it just kind of opened my eyes to just the connection between all the smells in the market. And then Chile is a wine producing country. And I just was it kind of changed the way that I looked at things, and really focusing on, my personal connection and passion for making a good meal. And I remember back then, I would go to an internet cafe with 100 Chilean pesos and watch a YouTube video about like how to chop an onion, and then read about Chilean wine regions and what would pair best with what I was cooking. And, I started off with lentil soup. I think that was the first thing that I made. And all the while imagining that I would, continue to translate, maybe teach more English, and apply to grad school, go back to the United States, and likely do something in public policy, maybe apply to law school, just not quite sure, but really just focusing on the passion for connecting cooking and wine to the land as like a personal hobby that I was just, really, it was accessible to me. I really enjoyed it. And, from there, it just kind of opened up a lot of possibilities. And I started seeing some opportunity, like, could this be where, am I going to completely change course? Is this where I'm going to end up? And then all the while thinking, my time here in Chile is it's short. I'll go back, and then I will go back equipped with my Spanish language skills. But really, it was kind of the beginning of a completely new course for me, a new path in terms of my personal life, and then also where my career really started, and how I got into the wine industry in Chile. And so I ended up, I won't go through the entire story, but I ended up there for the next 6 years and down a completely different path. And that has nothing to do with where I am at Project Hope, but a lot to do with how I got here.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. It's just intriguing to see what you've done with your life, where you've been, and what you're up to now.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about that moment where you changed course completely. What surprised you the most about transitioning into nonprofit fundraising?
So that's really interesting because, I met this incredible woman who became my mentor down in Chile. I call her my fairy wine mother because she, like me, was from the United States and moved down to Chile and ended up immersing herself in the wine industry and had this book that I loved called Vino para Todos, which is wine for everybody, that I kind of look to as my guide. And she's the one who opened the path for me in the wine industry because I started translating for her. She recommended me for a position at this incredible winery called Cono Sur, where they needed somebody in communications and marketing. And that's where I got into the digital space and the storytelling space, all the while thinking, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be in the wine industry. I'm going to tell the stories of the vineyards. And then when I moved back to the United States, it was my first time looking for a full-time job. And I quickly realized that most of the positions there were sales related. And I really loved the digital storytelling, the marketing side of it. And I wasn't sure what to do. So the course kind of changed for me, not necessarily that I decided, here I go. I ended up applying for a job that, because of my Spanish language skills, that was a key requirement, but it ended up tying back to my love of animals and animal welfare because it was a digital position on the digital marketing team for advocacy and fundraising at what was Humane Society International and is now Humane World for Animals. And it ended up just working out. I applied, I got the interview, and I thought, this is great. I have a full-time job at a mission-driven organization. I get to use my Spanish skills. And in the meantime, I'll keep looking to see if I could find something in the wine industry here, or we'll just see. And so even I would say for the first 6 months to a year, I loved it. But the whole time I was thinking, oh, but I'm going to go, I'm going to keep going on my path, and not realizing that it had completely changed for me. And I was where I always was meant to be.
Oh, that is fascinating. So what does mission-driven leadership mean to you?
Oh, so many things. It means letting purpose guide every decision. And that might sound like really complicated, but I mean, it really helps me. Mission-driven is, to me, it's collective. It's about like the community of your organization and the people that you serve. And so, at Project Hope, we're a global health and humanitarian organization. And so thinking about, but we deliver urgent relief with lasting impact. And so that's sort of, we start there and work backwards. And so in terms of the leadership, I think that it really helps guide how we make decisions, how I make decisions. And, our president and CEO, Robbie Torbe, he leads by example. And, I feel like his dedication permeates through the organization. And to me, so that leadership, it's we work side by side, and, he'll say, we won't go anywhere in the world to help that I won't be on the front lines. And so I feel like that's something that really guides me when it comes to mission driven and mission driven leadership. And again, we're all what feels more equitable and like we are really on the same page and working collaboratively is that we are all serving the same mission. And that is, we are helping to deliver urgent relief with lasting impact in the countries where we work, where it's needed most.
Now, 2025 has seen crisis after crisis. How do you stay hopeful in the light of what's going on in the world?
I know. I mean, it certainly helps when hope is in the name, but truly, I mean, getting more serious. I think that what really keeps me hopeful is seeing my colleagues on the ground. There's so much behind the mission, and everybody works hard, but it's really our colleagues on the ground. We've got people on the ground in Gaza and Ukraine. And, when things seem really bleak, just knowing that they're actively delivering life-saving care, working with local partners, working to make sure that everybody has access to health and hope. Hope is like an active word. It's not a passive word. And so I think it's a choice that we make. And things can seem really, really bleak, but I think that knowing that the more I do my job, the better I do my job, the better we all work together. What that ends up meaning is that more children and more families have access to health and hope.
So what is the most powerful story that you've encountered in your work?
I don't know that I could pick just one, but this is probably because it's recent and on my mind. I could think of so many, but very recently in Ukraine, one of our ambulances was attacked, and thankfully nobody was injured. The driver was okay. And then just immediately back transporting people, delivering care, and just what's so impactful to me about that and a lot of the other stories that I've come across is that there's just this incredible resilience. There are so many people experience kind of unimaginable difficulties, displacement, war, other disasters. There's just so much that people go through, and to see that basically no matter what, nothing will stop them. That resilience is just, it's so impactful, and it really gets to you, especially if it's a particularly rough day, the news is bleak, that's something that stories like that really stick with you.
Yeah, I can imagine. Now, how do you use digital tools to build a human connection?
That's such a good question, because this day and age, there's so much about how the digital, with social media, how it might not be so good for us, the doom scrolling. But I do feel like digital tools, especially when it comes to storytelling and building connection, you have to meet people where they are. And so I feel like, when I'm trying to reach somebody, we have this incredible community of donors, and I feel like the best way to reach them in the digital space is through telling stories. Typically, via email is a great way, but I think I try to, I don't want to say middle person, but my goal is to connect people who might donate to us who are donors of ours, connect them directly to the people that we serve and the work that we're doing. And so, I'm behind the scenes, so my goal is to make that connection as direct and clear as possible, because essentially, I'd like to amplify the work that my colleagues are doing, tell the stories of the people that we're serving, and then make it very clear the difference that one individual can make, no matter, it doesn't matter the amount, it's every donation, every supporter makes a difference.
That's just fantastic. So what role does storytelling play in successful fundraising?
I just think it's so essential, because really, the importance of connecting people who are interested in the work that we're doing in the cause, we've got to show, the people, like, this is so often when we'll be able to hear from the people that we work with about specific stories about children that they've seen in their clinics, for example. A lot of the message that the overarching theme is, we don't want to be forgotten. We don't want to be forgotten. There's, there's this disaster or this crisis, and we just don't want the world to forget about us. And so I think in fundraising and storytelling, making sure that is, we're staying true to that and true to that story, and being as genuine as possible, and making sure that it's we're demonstrating, being as authentic and accurate, and just basically, it doesn't matter where you live. A human is a human, a child is a child. And I think, with a global organization, that's really the goal, is to make sure that, we're all humans.
So how do you maintain empathy without burnout?
Oh, well, I've mentioned this, but I'm just so inspired by my colleagues and the work that they're doing, and that really helps. I think that making sure to identify when it might be the news is really tough. Something really upsetting's happened. We recently had uh, right outside of one of our clinics in Gaza, there was an airstrike and people were killed. And that was, really devastating for everybody and for my colleagues and I. And, you don't want to stop doing your job. It makes you want to work as hard as even harder. But our organization focuses on delivering health, and we believe that mental health is healthcare. And so, and it also, it is a huge part of the health of our organization, the culture. And so I just feel so supported by my colleagues, and that there is such a culture of say, hey, I'm having a hard time. I need to take an hour. My go-to is to take my dog for a walk or to go swim at the pool, because it's, physical activity, it's meditative, and then go right back to it. So, I mean, I think it's like being really honest when you might be feeling a little burnt out, and sharing that and knowing that it's going to be received and supportive. And then just it's very comforting to know that if I'm doing my job well, it's kind of helping. So that's a good feeling.
A nice feeling. So what advice would you give someone who's seeking more purpose in their life and work?
That is such a good question. I would say, I just think it's so important to ask yourself what you want and what you don't want as importantly, so if I were seeking more purpose, I would maybe try to, I have done this, is like, what makes me happy? What makes me feel what makes me feel fulfilled, what scares me, what motivates me, and what excites me. Like, those are the questions that I really want to think about and answer if I'm thinking about where I'm headed and what purpose I'm seeking. And then for me, and I don't know, like, this is the advice that I would give somebody, but really just identifying even just one goal, what you want, and figure out, like, this is what I want. I have no idea how I'm going to get there, but start there and work backwards, because I just feel like if you start there, you are saying it's going to happen, and then you fill in the rest as you go. And I just think that you'll never know what you can accomplish until you try. So I really do think, like, start with what you want and figure out the roadblocks along the way, instead of saying, this is why I can't do that. This is another reason why I can't do that. Just start with, yes, you can, and then go back.
So what's your take on the future of philanthropy?
There's a lot of people call this like the generosity crisis at this point. But I don't think it's as bleak, but the trends are that while revenue might be overall, the total amount of dollars that are donated in a year might be up, the number of individuals who are making those gifts has been on the decline over the past several years. And that, what I think of when I think of that as a fundraiser is, oh my gosh, it has never been more important to make sure that the donors that do support your cause continue to trust in you and support. So just establishing that connection and maintaining it is so essential. And it also says to me, it's going to be a little bit more difficult when you're trying to reach new donors and new people who are going to support your cause, because there's also a changing understanding, I think, of what philanthropy is. Whereas, I think traditionally there was the nonprofit space and then there's the for-profit space. Whereas now it can be, replacing your, adding solar panels to your house and going solar, or buying an electric vehicle that can fit in the space, which is, that is doing something. And so nonprofits are competing with for-profits in a way that I don't know that it's always been the case. And so, I mean, for me, it comes back to trust. I think that making sure that you are demonstrating trust, and that when people donate $50 to $50,000, that they trust that you are going to be responsible with it, and it's going to go to the cause that you know, the person as the donor thinks. So
that transparency is crucial.
I totally agree. And we have a 4-star rating at Charity Navigator, which, you know, that speaks to the transparency, the authenticity, and like the financial health. And so, you know, I think stuff like that it's always important. But when you're looking at the changing landscape, I think that that's something to keep top of mind.
Yeah, in the back of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
So my last 2 questions for you are a bit of a thought experiment. In the first one, I want to teleport you back to the younger you.
Okay.
The young woman who went into the world of philanthropy, wanting to make a difference in the world. Just in case there is someone who's listening to us right now, could be somebody who wants to reinvent themselves and find more purpose. If you could go back and give her 3 nuggets of wisdom, based on what life has taught you up until this point, what would those 3 nuggets of wisdom be?
So good. I think the first one would be, it's okay if you're wrong. You should not be afraid. Like, that is great to make mistakes and learn, you know? And the other one would be, every opportunity is a learning opportunity. Like, stay curious. Because I think that, you know, even if you're not, in my experience, I've been in a part of my career where, you know, this isn't the role that I thought it would be. It's not fulfilling me the way that I thought it was, but it's also, I'm learning something. So it's not a negative. So I think that, like, staying open and curious to the fact that every day and every person you meet could teach you something about what you want in your career, about yourself. And so, like, instead of thinking, oh, I'm an expert in this area, think my mind could be changed. My perspective could be broadened at any time. So I like to go into every situation as like, what can I learn from this experience, this person, this interaction, this new situation. And so just really staying alert, like staying a learner forever. Just make sure that you're constantly focused on learning and experiencing as much as you can. And then I think the third would be, check in with yourself and make sure that you're feeling that, like, do I feel like I'm my authentic self in whatever I'm doing? And I don't mean that has to, you know, that I can tell my colleagues personal things, but more, hey, when I'm myself on this work call with my boss's boss's boss, do I feel like I'm able to be myself in whatever is appropriate there? And when I'm one-on-one, the work that I'm doing, do I feel like I'm authentically me? Because I think that is, because when you find that, you'll know it. And that's how I feel now.
Oh, I absolutely love it. The last question is futuristic. I'll teleport you into the future this time. And we are going to go and sit with a 90-year-old you. And she's sitting in her rocking chair, surrounded by her children, her grandchildren, her dogs and cats, whoever is with you at the end. If you could teleport and go and have a conversation with this wise woman who has led you to this point, what will you say to her when you finally meet her?
Oh, I would probably say, don't spoil the good parts for me. I don't want to know. And I'm sure she would be surrounded. She'd probably have a couple of family members and friends over, and a couple dogs and cats at least. She'd probably try to make me watch too many music videos with her on YouTube. But I would want her to give me those 3 nuggets of advice, because maybe, I mean, I'm assuming she's, you know, probably added to them or shifted priorities. But yeah, I think I would say, don't spoil anything, but, can you give me a hint? Or is there one thing that you would want to tell me? Because I guess, yeah, I wouldn't want her to spoil the middle or the ending.
I absolutely love that. This is so inspiring. I just love the game that you're playing in life.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I asked that last question is a lot of women don't realize that the wise woman is already in us. She is that quiet voice that prompts you to advocate for causes. You took a completely different direction to where your life was going. You saw a cause, you're out there making a difference and empowering so many lives with the work that you're doing. So thank you for listening to your wise woman. I'm pretty sure she's not going to give away any of her secrets. But yeah, I think as women, we need to go within and trust that voice when it prompts us to make a difference. And you certainly are doing that with Project Hope. So thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you so much. That's such lovely words. Thank you.
We need an army of people like you. Thank you. And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. The Her Story Circle is not just a podcast. We're a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share these stories to uplift you, to inspire you, to energize you, but most importantly, to take you from where you are now to where you're trying to go. So a lot of times we're faced with humanitarian crisis. We don't know how we can support, how we can help. Organizations like Project Hope give you that opportunity. So please go onto their website, donate if you can, volunteer your skills, your time. We can all make a difference in the world if we do just a little something. So I'll be back again tomorrow, everybody, with yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Isabel, don't tire, just keep on going. Thank you for the interview.
Thank you so much.
Bye for now, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making her story. Absolutely.